Hello, everyone. Welcome to Busy Reading Romantasy. You're going to notice if you're watching this, it looks a little different today. I have been having a lot of fun playing with StreamYard lately. One of my clients uses it, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to figure this out. We're going to have some fun. So you're going to notice some things are different today. I highly recommend you actually watching it rather than just listening. But yeah, let's get into it in a second when I find the button that I'm looking for. Welcome to Busy Reading Romantasy, a video podcast that discusses books that merge elements of romance and fantasy while occasionally exploring other genres. We get to escape our world and dive deep into themes of good versus evil, power dynamics, and all of the delicious taboo topics. Curiosity and open-mindedness are a must. That being said, this is a podcast for mature audiences only and will contain spoilers. Your mental health matters, so be sure to check the trigger warnings of each book to decide if this is the right episode for you to listen to. Now, let's get into today's episode. So, more than likely, you would know that if you clicked on this episode, we're talking about book 3 of Laura Thalassa's Four Horsemen series, Famine. And I'm so excited to get into this. But of course, we have to bring on our guest, Gabby. How are you?
Hello. I'm so great. How are you?
I am doing good. It's Friday. We've made it through the week. So, upwards from here. So happy to have you back. How's everything been in your book reading world?
Good. I know we were talking about it earlier, but I've been reading a lot this month. I think this is probably the most I've read in a month, I think. And I just finished Famine like an hour ago. So
fair. It's like that sometimes. 1 second. I'm going to see if it clears up. There was like a bit of a lag. Are you back now? Oh, yeah. Okay. Now you're good. Now you're fine. You're caught up. Sometimes I think it just like freaks out for a second. Not an interesting start. Yeah, it's definitely like that. Surprisingly, I read Famine pretty quick, but then I've been busy with a lot of other books. All great books. It's all been exciting. But yeah, so I highly recommend you go watch the first 2 that we've filmed. We've gone through Pestilence, we've gone through War, and now we're at Famine. What did you think of this? Just overall, I guess.
Yeah, I liked it better than War a tiny bit. You know what? Now that I've sat with it for a while, it might be equivalent to Pestilence for me. Less than more than War for sure, though.
Yeah.
I really liked it. It was different than the other 2, which I'm very glad for, because I was nervous that it was going to be, because War was very similar to Pestilence, and I was like, can we not do another like a third version of Pestilence? You know what I mean? So
I agree. I will say, out of all the predictions, I was right. The first thing I guessed was maybe that it would be in South America. Well, technically, I just said that would be cool. So when I saw that it was in South America and Brazil, that was very exciting. I was very wrong about the fact of I was like, well, if it's famine, they're just going to starve. That's going to take forever. Wrong. He has, okay, so this is where we get in the spoilers part, guys. This is what we do. We run through the whole plot, and then we'll talk about our thoughts about it. But the little trees that just burst up everywhere and kill everybody, I couldn't have expected that would be a thing.
Yeah, all the trees, I thought of you because you said the South America thing, and I was like, oh, she was right for sure. And then, yeah, I remember you saying the thing about the food too, like everyone's gonna starve. And the trees and like the plants killing everyone, pleasant surprise. Definitely unexpected though.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hopping in, we start in Brazil, as we've mentioned, and they have offerings for famine. We have our main character. Do you say Anna or Anna? I think when I read, my brain just recognizes it as a name, and I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I say Anna.
Okay, fair. So we know that the main character has seen him before, but we don't necessarily have all of the information, the background there. Famine is staying at the mayor's house. He wants like all of the nicest things. And she is basically waiting in line with Eloa to go essentially before him. He doesn't recognize her at all. And we kind of get this hint that like she saved him from her thoughts, but we still don't know the full story. And he's like, ew, I don't want to have sex with you because she's essentially a prostitute. And then they stab her and Eloa to death by chapter 3. Wow. What a start.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I read the first one, like you said, the first few chapters whenever she's offered to him, and right after she's stabbed, dumped into that empty pool, I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be way different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So she gets this little whisper to live, and she essentially wakes up in this pool filled of buried dead people. And you're like, yep. Mm-hmm. She walks home, and this is where we learn about the trees that sprout up everywhere and are killing people as well. She's alone. She's essentially the only one that has, I want to say survived, but she technically died as well. She just got sent back. And she's like, you know what? I want revenge. And this is where I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be a good book.
Yeah, but I mean, she already knows he can't die, so that was the first time that I'm like, what is the point? But it got way
That's
better
fair.
from there, so.
That's fair. Yeah. So she spends a month kind of essentially following his path of destruction to try to catch up to him, because she does take some time to like have to heal herself and everything, which also that just feels like what a crazy time to know that you haven't died, you're the only one left, you're surrounded by the dead because like you're not, everyone else has died where they're at. And she sneaks up on him. Finally, I say sneak. I don't think she actually like. I think maybe he knew, but she finally gets him to remember her, and that's where we get the backstory that Famine was captured and absolutely mutilated. She's like walking through the woods, the forest. I guess that's what I pictured at least. And she saves him and is like caring for him. She like drags his body, what's left of it, to this like little shack. Again, that's how I pictured it. And I wrote down the one quote that I pulled is he's like, I'm Famine and I'm here to kill you all. Like she thought, oh, maybe if I help him get better. And he's like, no, this is my job. This is just what it is.
But at least he let her live. Because he's like, he offers her, like, hey, come with me. You can ride with me while I go murder all of your species. So she does turn him down, which I was very sad about. But, we need a little, like, I guess, strife on her part. Because she was still a kid. So, yeah, that would have been weird. But, yeah, I was so mad she didn't go with him. But I get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he heals up and essentially kills everyone, and he wants her to come with, and she's like, no, I can't do that. I do think it's cute. I think I've read so many books now. I do really like cute nicknames and ones that aren't common. And so he starts to call her Flower, and like, how appropriate too. Like it makes sense, and
Okay, and my mind is so slow that he calls her Flower, and I didn't realize until the end of the book he grows that flower for her when he offers it to her, to say like, hey, come with me, whatever, and it's her flower. And then
yeah.
he starts calling her Flower, and I'm like, oh shit, connecting.
Yes, no, exactly. So that's kind of like the beautiful thing is he's like basically growing these trees to kill people essentially, and also like destroying all of the food so everyone starves and stuff like that. And we see the flip when he starts actually growing things. And he ties her up to try to keep her. And the other quote that I pulled is when he's like, "I'm not known for letting flowers grow." We're like, okay, Famine. So he makes her bathe, and that's when he sees all of her wounds, all the stab wounds. She's got like stabbed 50 million times. Um, and he will feed her if she stays. So he gives her like a slice of papaya, and she's like, "What is this? You don't understand. We need maybe a little more." Um, and also, okay, so I kind of like I quickly breezed over the fact that she's a prostitute, but I think it was such um a brilliant character, and also um her personality. Like, she had all the kind of spunky, dirty jokes that Famine was absolutely not a fan of. But I loved that about her. So she just like keeps talking and talking, and he's like, "Can't you just shut up?" And she's like, "I'll shut up if you fill my mouth." And he's so
Yes,
exasperated with
dude.
her. He's so over it.
Yeah, oh my gosh. All of her like sex jokes throughout the book and like the innuendos and oh man, it was so funny. Some of these
Yeah.
lines, yeah, Miss Laura Thalassa really outdid herself.
It's one of those cases where I think we often get in reading, you get the very experienced man that's a really smooth talker and can kind of, uh, focus more on the female who tends to be more innocent and like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how to do these things. Can you teach me?" And so when you get that flipped, and it's not that he was necessarily innocent, but he just wanted none of it. But for her to be comfortable enough with herself and her energy to just like be herself consistently, I always find that like very admirable.
Yeah, and I really was surprised. I mean, I guess not surprised because he's really old, but when we were kind of led to think that he is a virgin because of how much he didn't want to hear those like words from her. Um, but yeah, it kind of was obvious later on that oh, he's just fighting his feelings, and like if he, entertained what she like keeps putting out there, then he's gonna fall harder, and he was fighting it the whole time. We learned later on. So yeah, I really like that they both were kind of as experienced as the other sexually because like obviously she's a prostitute, but she he has had other sexual encounters before basically. So I was glad that it wasn't like one of us is a virgin.
Right, right, exactly. It evens the playing field a bit. There's like a weird lag that I've never seen before. It's like annoying me.
Constantly too. Yeah, like it's not going away.
Well, we tried it. Luckily, I have a free week to try this out. Maybe I'll just edit in my I could always just make my own overlays. Okay. I guess do you want me to just send you a link to Zoom real quick and we can hop over there? It's distracting the conversation because I feel like I finish my thought and then I sit here for like 5 seconds before you answer.
Same. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now that we can actually talk to each other in real time, we're back. We're talking about all of like the sexual jokes that she makes and everything. Same thing. He's gonna kill everyone, and off they go to the next town. Um, and they show up at speaking of the sexual jokes, as they're riding to the next town, she's her stream of thoughts was just delightful as well. Um, and he's so exasperated with her that he actually grows some food to shut her up about how hungry she is and everything. And she's like, "You know what? I would have preferred the blowjob to save all of humanity. Like what an honor it would have been to be like that was me. I did such a good job. I saved everyone, you know?"
Horseman dick can't take this mouth.
Yeah, exactly. They show up at the next town, and same thing. He demands the nicest house that they have, and he wants dinner and he wants entertainment, and he he's quite It's interesting because he's obviously not, hmm, I think with war there was a big focus on killing and everything, and I think Famine just seems like a very harsh guy. Like he's not playing around.
Okay, and like real psychotic too. Like
Yeah.
some of the stuff that he did to these people, but like the rapid mood changes freaked me out.
Yes.
I was like, is he okay?
Yeah, no, absolutely. At one point she is not afraid to be feisty with him, which I love about her as well, and she slaps him, and so he grows a whole thorn cage around her to like keep her in place. So like you said, he can kind of switch real quick and it's a matter of how much can you get away with. Um Later he makes Anna join his judgment of kind of everyone lines up to make these offerings to him and he kills them all for the most part. Like um he she does kind of manage to change his mind a little bit, so he ends up putting a man's daughter in like a bedroom and then she's like, "Oh my God, what are you gonna do with her? Like what's going on?" Um plot twist.
Oh my God, now that you say that, what happened to her? Because I
I
don't
don't
remember.
remember. I was just thinking that. I was like, I don't think he obviously I don't think anything happened to her, but I think he still killed everyone before they moved on to the next place. Like, so
Oh, but they never said if he killed her too, or if he let her go. What was the point of saving her then? Just to like piss off Anna or
yeah,
damn.
maybe I don't know. He's like, I'm gonna listen to you, but I'm gonna make you regret it.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that because potential plot hole. What
I
happened to her?
yeah, I completely forgot. He lets her eat from this giant feast. Also, he's low-key an alcoholic,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he's like, I just really like to drink, so I don't remember things. And you're like, oh, that's a problem, buddy.
Yeah, added to the red flags. Oh my God.
Yes. So they move on the next day. Don't know what happened to the girl, assuming she's dead. He just let her die in the bedroom rather than being stabbed and thrown in another pool, maybe. Um, And he actually, to get her to shut up, the lengths this man would go to get her to be quiet, he actually gives her a compliment. I didn't write down what the compliment was, but
No,
it
but
was
I
just,
remember she kept talking even after that, and he was like, "Do you want another compliment?"
yeah. I like we get the nice, sexy, sassy sunshine and the broody little grumpy alcoholic that's been through some stuff. Um, and she's falling asleep on the horse and he won't stop and she's like kind of trying to like nestle herself into him so she doesn't fall and finally he does um but when they show up wherever they're at he kills and she tries to make a run for it. Obviously that doesn't really work. They continue on. He stops again, and basically wherever he stops, he like goes in to like empty out the house and just kill everyone there. But there's an old lady there, and Anna actually rushes in front. So he ends up because he has the scythe,
Mhm.
which is interesting. It makes sense that it's with famine, but it's interesting how I think in our culture, I guess I don't know where it came from, but like we associate like the Grim Reaper, like death with the scythe.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
so
but I
that's
know
just an
like
interesting.
farmers used to use it to like clear their fields. So
Yeah, I just want to know where it became like synonymous with the Grim Reaper that had the like little, I don't know,
I
interesting.
don't know.
Um, So he ends up hurting her. He can't pull it like quick enough. And he patches her up and he's like pacing back and forth and she finally gets him into bed. He can't I guess he didn't drink all his problems away that night, so he's a little on edge. And he explains why it makes sense why he's the biggest, like he's so harsh. He is also the least human out of all of his brothers. And that's again where I think like the beauty of like, oh, it makes sense. So just like how War was the most human, because that's something that like, I guess I would say rages inside all of us, maybe not necessarily like we go at war with ourselves, not necessarily like killing war,
Right.
but he's more comfortable with like storms and lightning and like the weather and nature and mountains and streams.
Oh my God.
So
And he says that he can feel it all. Could you imagine
yeah,
that? Like every like bug and worm, you're just aware of it all the time, dude?
yeah. No, that I couldn't imagine what that noise is like. You'd have to be pretty good at like blocking it out.
Yeah.
Um, Man, does he hunger? He says, that's the one thing. And it's like, okay, okay, Famine.
Oh my gosh. And like similar to me, he cannot control his face either. Like she knows, obviously from her experience with
Mhm.
being a prostitute, but also like, man, he makes it obvious. Like, just come on, give in. We all want you to give in, please.
Yeah, you're not fooling anybody.
No.
We all know what's gonna happen here. Um, and he talks a little bit. So I think it's been enough books, just enough books since I've read this that the details are a little hazy. I remember the ending pretty great, but he mentions that he stopped seeing people after all of his like torture. So after he got tortured and she saved him, he kind of like went, I think, off the grid a little bit and just like did his own thing, following a family's kindness. But the story kind of like one of the hard things about like retelling and going through a plot is often you'll get little pieces of a story, so you don't have the whole thing yet. Like I know how the whole story unfolds, but we don't have the whole thing quite yet. But he's tending to her wound more, making sure she's okay. Um, I wrote as they approach the next town, he starts getting almost like giddy, and and he's just excited to take the next area. He ends up tying her down to the bed before going and burning all of the bodies. He makes her change into a dress, and then he tends to keep a few men at each town. He'll end up killing them at the very end before like moving on, but he kind of keeps them to like do his bidding, I guess. Um, he gets a little jealous when they start looking at her.
Oh my gosh, yeah. He made a like yeah, so they walk up and there was a guard like eyeing her. And
Uh-huh.
I don't remember the actual comment, but he was like, "Hey, if you want to keep your eyes, you're gonna stop eye fucking her right now."
Yeah.
I was like, "Yes."
That's the energy we need, basically. Um, he's like, you know what, we're gonna have a party. That's appropriate, right? Let's throw a party. It's fine. Nothing else matters right now in the world. Uh, and he does dance with her, surprisingly, but because she's spicy and we know she'll stand up for herself, she stabs him in the hand and he turns around and kills everyone. Again, it's that like quick, she has no problem pushing and he will push right back and just be like, look, this is it. Um, and I really like, because this was what I was getting frustrated with at this part too, is she points out that she's been tortured too. Like she is not the only one that has felt pain, because he uses that, like that is his excuse, right? All these monsters did this to me. Humanity doesn't, isn't worth preserving. You guys are all messed up essentially, like you all should die. And she's like, you know what, that's part of it, okay? I got tortured too. That doesn't make me a monster. I still turned around and saved you. So you can't like judge us all like that.
Yeah, because that's what it means to be human is to suffer. Granted, not as much as he did, because wow,
Yeah.
that was fucked up. But like, you know, to be human is to suffer. And
Yeah.
he thinks that he's the only one that has felt pain. And yeah, I think that kind of hit him when he heard her say that, like, oh, okay, yeah, other people have gone through shitty situations.
Mhm. Absolutely. And like just I think like the unfairness of it all. I think that's another part of humanity is just like as much as we try to keep things maybe fair or even or trying to have this illusion of keeping things fair and even, it like just things aren't. You're gonna get people who on the extreme ends torture you and such like that. And it's, it you can't let things be an excuse for why you are the way you are, essentially.
Mhm.
You can. I don't think that's like maybe the most fun way to live. But
I think a lot of people do it anyway, not just
that
in my
is
book.
true. Yeah, yeah, right. Um, so he cleans her up yet again and admits that he is worse than his brothers, but nothing is worse than death. And I'm like, ooh, we're ready for him. I can't wait.
Oh my God, I can't. Yeah. That ending, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, so things have shifted again, as they usually do, as we are progressing through these books. And he ends up stopping at a place that has been abandoned rather than going to a place that has occupants because he knows that she doesn't like how he goes in and just murders everybody. And it's like, this is my house now. Downside, because it's abandoned, the way Laura described these places of just like all sorts of things growing. Could you imagine? I think they get there at night. And so she like lays down in his lap. And then when she wakes up in the morning, she just sees the whole place covered in like mold. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I
No.
wouldn't survive that.
I would walk right out. I don't care how tired I am. I will sleep on the ground
Yeah, why don't they
outside.
just sleep out in the fresh air?
Ugh, I think it might have been raining, maybe, but
Oh,
also
fair.
he controls the weather. Please just make it stop.
Let
And
me
I
just
think,
pause.
yeah, I think that she like mentions that, and he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, so I'm supposed to cater to your human whims?" And
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yes, yes, you are.
Yes. So she lays her head down in his lap and he tells her a story about an Egyptian goddess who weighs your heart. And I was like, oh, that sounds very interesting and similar to another person we know because Famine not only has his scythe, but he has the scales. And I did think it was interesting that we learned in this one that like he can leave them and they'll just like pop up wherever he's at. Like he can't he is never without them for too long. Like they'll just follow along.
Yeah, and then they talk about that when he was being tortured, like the guys hurting him would just take him all the time and like I wonder how often like they're just like mid, I don't know, like hitting him or whatever and like pop, here's your scythe and your scale.
Boop. Just out of nowhere. And I'm like, it's funny because it has to be one of those things where like the magic is just a little bit too easy. Like, do they pop out nicely on a surface? Do they just pop out midair and fall? Because that doesn't seem. Lots of questions about that.
Yeah, yeah, because later in the book they popped up and it was like a few feet away from him. So like where's the line? Does he control
Right.
it in some aspect? Like if he's like probably, yeah, because he does some his side. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Where's the distance? Where's the line?
Right, right. So she wakes up and he immediately gets up to leave. He like sat there the whole night, which is very sweet, but that's too close for his comfort. He doesn't want to talk, and she realizes, oh, I think he does care. So she turns around and kisses him, and he's like, "Stop! No, we're not doing this." And so they head on. Let's leave this moment in the past. And they're headed to Sao Paulo, which is one of the bigger cities. Um, and that's where they meet Hector, kind of like Hector, no C. And this is like this head drug guy, and he pledges fealty, and you just know he's like a slimy, disgusting dude. Uh, and so, but he pledges fealty, so Famine is like, you know what, we'll keep you around, it's fine. Uh, and he escorts Anna to her room and like feels her up a little bit, and you're like, ooh, this is not gonna end well. So they go to dinner, Famine and Anna, and Hector is gone. And Famine made it clear that like this guy who thinks he's the head honcho, like I want him to serve us. And he just was not there. He had better things to do. Um, and at this dinner, Anna, she's very tired of like playing along. She's not just gonna like go along with everything and ends up throwing a glass. And he's like, all right, dinner's over, you know. Um, so he takes her to, oh, I think things get like a little steamy. They're trying to, well, he's trying to ignore it. She is not ignoring it. He ends up taking her to his room, but then not for what you expect. He's like, let me show you how the scales work. Interestingly, when she puts her blood on one side of the scale, it goes like slightly down, and then when he puts his blood, it goes all the way up, meaning good. He's a good character. And she also does tell him that Hector had grabbed her ass, and he's like, that's not great.
Yeah, he's like, I need to go have a chat with him right now and leaves. And I'm like, oh no. But this whole
Yeah.
situation, I it just was so weird to me because of all people that you choose to like let into your circle or let live, period, you
Mhm.
choose one of the worst people that even Anna is like, you should kill him. And he's like, whoa, so now you want me to kill your people? Yes, this one is a bad person.
Yeah,
Why would you
yeah.
let this one live?
Right. I feel like Famine tried. Well, okay, so I think his effort to maintain control of the situation was like, I'm gonna put him in his place. And it does backfire. Mostly because Anna's human. And we'll see why that becomes a problem in a second, where like it's different for the horsemen where they can get murdered and mutilated and they're just gonna come back. It's low risk. Um, but to play those games when a human's involved just does not go well.
Yeah, and as when you started like explaining that there, now I wonder if it was a purposeful like definitely a power play. I think maybe Famine was he saw what was going on and wanted to show him like, no, I'm the big dog
Mhm.
here. Obviously backfired, but ah, pride again,
Yeah.
men.
And I think it was to prove it to Anna as well, to kind of get her to say like, "Oh, you want me to kill him? Like where are you at on this? Is it bad?" You know, like
Yeah. Ugh.
kind of getting her to make like a tough maybe showing her like the worst of humans, which she already kind of knew. So it's like you it's not you can't get the blanket statement for everyone basically. Um she waits up for him and he doesn't return. Finally, she hears the door open and even just like looking, it's I'm assuming it's very dark, but she knows that it's not Famine. It was actually Hector sneaking in and she ends up attacking him with a candelabra. We love a strong female that can, do what she needs to do. He passes out. At first I really thought he was dead and I got very excited, but we quickly find out he is not dead. That was not a killing blow. Um, and she sneaks out and finds his other men who are basically like hacking Famine apart yet again. Body parts everywhere is just what I picture. But yet again, she saves him and she stabs a man in the process, which um, it's it's interesting because I think she's so I don't know that I want to say peaceful, but like to get to that point where she's actually stabbing a man for Famine is also an interesting, like, okay, I see how much he actually means to you to be willing to do all of that. Um, and she manages to get him out. And yet again, she has to wait for him to heal. And uh, in that time, she starts telling him all about, her life and everything. And this is where we get a bit more of her past as well, that I believe both of her parents died and she went to go live with, I think, like an aunt
Mhm.
um, who was just like super abusive, and she could, she doesn't even like vilify her. In her eyes, she was like, well, yeah, like I was an extra burden. I was more for her to take care of. She had other kids, like it was tough. And um, basically, that was when she had found Famine the first time. And like let him heal, but because he wiped out and killed everyone, she was essentially on her own. So she made it to another area, and that's where she had no money, no food, nothing. That's how she ended up getting roped into prostitution, because she just like had no other options really. And that's where Eloa found her. So we finally get like all of her backstory.
Yeah, that was a really big part of the book filled with a lot of information, and then it was a big turning point for both of them because, when he's getting hacked up, again, ugh, like, oh, the way she described that.
Oh yeah,
Um,
were they like playing soccer with his body parts or something? I feel
yeah.
like I just picture.
Oh my God, yeah. Ugh. And then she's talking about it's like a wet thwacking noise. I'm like, oh God.
hmm
So yeah, very descriptive. And so she when she stabs the guy that attacks her, that is like, big turning point. Like she never killed someone, she never wanted to kill anybody. And so the fact that she didn't even hesitate to kill this man, stabbed him in the throat, or the neck, for Famine, like, that was huge. And then the getaway that she made, so she steals the cart that Famine's like pieces are in and like drives it down the road to get away from these people, but obviously a horse carting something is going to be slower than, a racing horse trying to chase after them. So I liked how realistic, um well, as realistic as you could make that situation was, because she realizes like, okay, I need to stop. And then she gets Famine, drags him into a field. um she smacks that horse to like get it to go, and so um like she hides him in the field to wait for him to heal. And I don't know how long that actually took, but in that time, like you said, like they're giving their backstories on everything. Um and she just hears the men going back and forth on horses. And so the whole time I'm like, oh, please don't find please don't find them in the field. But I really liked how that was all done, and then it gave us time to hear about, you know, her backstory and how she ended up with Ovita in the whorehouse, basically. So I like that whole part of that book.
Yeah. And I will say both times that she was with Famine waiting for him to like heal, I was really nervous that they were gonna find them, because like what a vulnerable position to be in when he can't do anything and she's there as well. So yeah, so he heals up and he's like, time for vengeance. They head back, which interesting. Well, I guess so in bringing her with him, like yet again, some men go after her and she has to stab one to protect herself. Um, and essentially Hector comes out and Famine just makes him like wither like the crops, which is also very descriptive, like just imagining the life being sucked out of your body. Um, but after all of that, he does call her my flower. Oh, so sweet.
So cute, yeah.
Almost murder, but sweet moments.
Yeah, we get that like revelation, like, oh, so this is like a new thing he can do that we now know. But when that was happening, I pictured, have you seen the Disney movie Hercules?
hmm
When like a when Hercules is swimming to get Meg in the river Styx and he's like withering, that's what I
Yes.
pictured. Yeah.
Yes. No, that is perfect. Yeah, exactly. So he brings her into his room where they were staying, and he's all messy and everything. So she turns around and bathes him. He absolutely hates it. Well, he says he hates it. I don't think he actually hates it. Um, but kind of there's some more flirting, and she's like, "Oh, do you need one?" He's like, "No, we're done." All done. Um, and she wakes up, he takes her to eat, so he's doing better at like meeting her needs for humanity as well. Um, and in her way, because obviously when they're moving on, she's just gonna talk nonstop. So what is she gonna talk about this time? She's starts to bring death into the conversation to the point where he thinks she wants to sleep with death and gets a little like upset about that. But he does mention that death is still sleeping. He's not awake yet. He's not here. But I think there's definitely a little bit of jealousy when he's like, "What? Oh, no."
Yeah, another attempt at her hiding her feelings by saying like, "Ah, I wasn't thinking about you. I was thinking about death."
Yeah, right, right. Um, so he takes her to the table, and this is where he like feeds her a little bit, and I was like, Famine is serving you. Like that was for someone who is so like harsh, I guess I never that was so satisfying to even imagine that he would be willing to do something like that because that did not seem in his character at all. Um, and then magically his scythe and his scales pop up there randomly, and she they're talking about something about sins, and she's like, well, maybe the alcohol will help him forget this sin, and kisses him, and um she stops because she's also nervous, I think, to go down this route, and like, how is this going to change things? But he's like, no, no, we can go back to normal tomorrow. Let's just have this right now. Tomorrow, back to normal, as people do, right? Because that's like so easy. It'll be fun. It'll be like nothing ever happened.
Never has
Um,
turned out bad in a book.
no, no, no. And I do think it's interesting that he asks her not to use her little like petty games because she has had a lot of sex and she's learned a lot of things, and kind of it's this like almost it was her job to essentially like create this fantasy and become whatever this other person wanted. And he's like, I don't want any of that. And she's like, oh, I don't know if I know how to do that. And he's like, well, we're both gonna have to try to be a little different right now than our normal. So I thought that was like a very sweet um conversation, as well as he starts to go down on her and she does stop him and brought up the conversation, which I think this is the first time I've ever read something like this in a book as well, where she was like, if you look at my line of work, I try my best to remain healthy, and also there are just these risks, and like, just, that makes me a little nervous. And he's like, girl, I am Famine. That is not going to affect me, first of all. Um, but I think it's interesting because I always I've talked about it a few times where I think, um, it's interesting reading intimacy, especially in fantasy books as well, because there's certain conversations, like I guess we're kind of used to like again these strong, sexy men coming in and like being like, this is everything. We don't necessarily have like consent conversations or like breaking it everything down because I think sometimes that could maybe like I don't want to use the word ruin, but it can slow things down. I've seen it done in like various ways, but just again, interesting that I don't think I've read anything like similar to this in any other books.
Yeah, I think it's probably a little more difficult to do it in like more fantasy type books because
Hmm.
it's like this is a fantastical world. There's nothing like disease. We're not worried about getting an STD or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, this famine in this world, it's more realistic, right? And so
Mhm.
I like that she's a prostitute. We have to address the obvious. Although it probably would have been easy for the author to be like, obviously he's famine. He wouldn't catch it. Why would I address
Mhm.
that? But yeah, I also really appreciated that it was talked about because for me personally, I'm gonna think of that. Like, how many people has she been with? Like, are you not concerned?
Right, right. Well, and I think that's the beauty of her character in general to read as a main character that is a prostitute of like how much of it is actually like her, I guess, of like it really sometimes, well, I think most people would maybe like judge her, and she does get that. She gets judgments about her character and the type of person she is. And then we get to meet like actually her. So I really like Laura's balance of including very real kind of situations from her job, but it's not like everything about her. It doesn't define her. It's only been a relatively small portion of her whole life in general. And beyond that, we have this like really strong, sassy, funny character. So it was interesting to get to know more about her throughout all of that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like in real life, right? Like people like being in the Air Force, I you meet a lot of people that have gone through traumatic things and they cope with humor.
Mhm.
And I don't think you see that done well a lot of the time in books. And I think it was done well with Anna. Like she had like you said, a short period of time where she went through a lot of shit
Mhm.
and she didn't let that basically overtake all of her thoughts all of the time. Like she hasn't lost her humor throughout life and she uses that experience to you know, make her stronger and uses humor to cope.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, uh, verbatim, what I put in my notes is he goes to town and she returns the favor, no mercy. That was my summary.
Dude, and like the way, so yeah, she said it was like the blowjob to end all blowjobs or something like that. The
Yeah.
way like she described that though, I was like, damn, girl really was putting in work.
She, she, she knew. She knew. Um, He also sees the welts on her back, and this is one moment where, obviously from being beat, and she does have a moment where she admits, like, I'm glad you're ending humanity. Which what a vulnerable thing to admit when you do see all the like evils of the world.
Yeah, and when she said that, I was because throughout the book up to that point, I was like, she's not really like trying to stop him. Like she's not as upset as, the women were in Pestilence and War.
Hmm.
Um, and when she said that, I was like, damn, like you sympathize with his purpose. And yeah, I was excited to see where that went from there, and I was very satisfied with how that was written.
Hmm. Absolutely. So in the morning, she's sick and he is like helping her out, getting her water, and until she mentions the agreement, she's like, no, no, we said we were going to go back to normal. You cannot be this nice to me. And um, they leave after he grows her another flower. Uh, she just has this feeling growing inside of her and she's acting very oddly and he's like whatever's going on I'm gonna find out, which is basically just that she has feelings for him.
Yeah.
um and he he mentions he's oddly comforted by how badly she receives kindness, um because he like makes her a bed and everything, and it's funny because it checks out because he is so removed from humanity, the fact that she's not used to someone thinking about her, um, puts her, that's like a way that they get to like bond and connect over the weirdness of that.
Yeah, he's like, I'm doing like basic kindness, and she's like, oh, never heard of it.
Okay, that's weird. Can we go back to normal now, please?
Right.
Like, so he does mention that he saw his brother War and how both War and Pestilence now had families. And she's like, "What? A whole
And I
family?"
was like, can we learn more about that, please? Like,
I know, just give me a little bit more. Um, so unfortunately, she wakes up the next morning to bandits, and they threaten to slice her throat until Famine ends up coming and saving her. He was off doing, I don't know, I forget. Do you know what he was doing?
um,
Something.
no, he was just gone. I don't think that she's
Yeah,
said, yeah.
he was just going for a little walk.
Yeah,
Nothing.
he comes
Nothing
back out
crazy.
of the woods, like, sir, why were you there for so long?
What did you have to do? Um, and he comes back, he saves her, and he's like, fuck going back to normal. And I'm like, yes, we
The
made
fuck
it.
it moment, yes.
Um, she assures him that she's okay, and she ends up crying a little bit about being just like adored at that level. And he's like, you know what? I'm gonna make you forget that you were ever mistreated. Famine, man. Amazing. So they go at it again. My notes out of context where he enters her and pauses when she starts crying again. Uh, and he actually admits to kind of liking the human experience. 3 for 3. The minute they
Yeah.
have sex, they're like, okay, I
Oh
see.
man.
I see
And
what this is about.
yes, and that moment, because I remember her neck is sliced in that like
Yeah.
situation. And so he, after anything bad happens in a book, like a big fight, it's something traumatic, that you want to have a good, positive, loving experience. And so yeah, they go at it, and he's like, but are you sure? Because like your neck is fucked up.
Right. And it's
And
dark. It's dark,
yeah.
so he didn't see how bad it actually was.
I know, and I was like, you probably shouldn't be doing this right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, he
No,
did it.
absolutely. Because he wakes her up and she's absolutely just covered in blood. Like it is not great.
Yeah, and he's like terrified.
Yeah. He takes her to an outpost and he's like, we're gonna stay here. She declines really quickly. She's like passing out. She has a really bad fever. She's vomiting everywhere. Um, and he goes and finds someone to essentially like force them to help, which is a bit scary because it reminds me of like Pestilence when he went in the hospital and was like, somebody's gonna fix her, and then ends up like killing them all.
Yeah.
Um, I do like how when she just in her delirious thoughts, she's like, you know what? I have survived all of this, right? I have overcome people beating me, sex work, like famine killing my whole family and finding a new place. Like, I am the cockroach. And I was like, yes, girl. Yes, you are. You can survive this. Um, he explains that he when she first found him, that very first night that she stayed with him and saved him and was helping him get healed up, in her sleep she actually spoke the angelic word for forgiveness. And he speaks more angelic to her as she's like fighting this off. Which I do think it's interesting because I do all of the women seem like they were all predestined. Like it wasn't just he found someone randomly. Like there was always something. I think there was some sort of like intervening, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get more answers on that as far as the last book goes, but that has been a pattern as well.
I know. I hope we do, because in the beginning, I assume it's death, could be God, I don't know. She's dead, and they're like, live. They whisper, live, and
Yeah.
I thought that it was gonna be more of like a you're predestined for me, but they didn't address that.
Right. No, exactly. So he is literally crying as she is dying. Is he the one that revives her? How did that
Yeah, yeah.
work?
So
Yeah.
she's dying, and he knows like she's about to be gone, and
Yeah.
so he goes and like tries to force the doctor to do more, and she's like, hey, I'm doing all I can. It's
Right.
you horseman that fucked everything up. If we still had a hospital, she'd be fine. um so he's like, you know what, I have never needed death. I've never needed my brothers for anything. I can do this. And so he, and I was thinking this before he did this. Like if you can control living things, can't you get rid of the bacteria or whatever is fighting her?
Right.
So he like goes into her body and like finds the infection and gets rid of it. He blasts it away. And I'm like, okay, good, thank you. This book made more sense than the last
Yes.
two, I think. I'm like, yes, thank you.
That's
Um,
fair.
yeah, so that's what happens. He like gets it out of her body, and then she wakes up the next day.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, okay. So she wakes up and walks out to find Famine, who's sitting in like this healthy sugarcane field. And like that was the first thing he kind of brought back afterwards. He's like, "Oh wait, you kill everything. You can also grow things." Um, and they reunite. They say their I love yous. Like it's frustrating, but also I understand that sometimes like it takes basically facing loss for you to admit maybe how much you care for someone. It's like, guys, we could have done this a while ago, but fine, on your own time.
Yeah, especially for a horseman. But I remember this happened at like 80% or something crazy. I was like, damn, this whole book. Like I got halfway done, and I was like, where where is all of the lovey-dovey feely stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, this one I finished this one pretty quick too because I think I was just like, where's it going? I need to know what ends up happening.
Yeah.
Um, they get into the next town and he mentioned something about a wife, and she's like, no, no, we're not doing that. And they get a house, and he's like, you know what? We're gonna do things differently now. So it's officially their house to stay in. They need to like renovate it, fix it up. It's very cute, honestly. I picture it was so cute. Um,
Cute that he was forcing the town to
yeah,
to rebuild the house.
yeah. He was like, we need a bunch of people in here to help though. Like they're sweeping up and everything. Um, and she's like, I need to be alone with you right now. So he kicks everyone out, and she's like, no babies though. I like how she was the one that was concerned about this, and like, we're not, Anna says exactly what she wants, and we love that. This time, as he finishes, flowers sprout everywhere, which like,
Yeah.
I hope this gets made into a movie because this is one moment I need to just see.
Yeah, I remember because she even mentions the floors, and like I remember they were talking about like hearing tile cracking, and I was like, dude, you just got this house. Who's gonna fix
Yes.
this?
Yeah. Well, and it's so sweet that that becomes like one of those things that's like a little lover's quarrel where she's like, "Stop doing this," and he's like trying to see how many plants he can get in before she like loses her mind.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, she likes to talk a big game, and she claims that he is not doing good enough to essentially fuck her speechless, and he's like, "Let me prove you wrong."
Yes.
So he proposes again. And this is where it was hilarious because also they're so close at this point. They essentially become like a normal human couple. So he's like, even dealing with your atrocious morning breath and your farts, would you like to be my wife? I was like, okay. She says yes at this point. They've gotten pretty close. So months pass and it gets to a point they feel so human at this point. So like everyone respects him and they absolutely adore Anna and like they've become kind of like part of this area. He basically decides to relinquish his purpose. This giant earthquake happens and he's like, ah, death is here. So it takes a few weeks for death to even arrive where they are, but famine feels when all of a sudden he wipes out the whole town and he like starts screaming for Anna because they weren't like right next to each other. He uses his plants to essentially try to like push her far away from the house, which that was like a wild, I think, thing to like imagine in my head of like I just pictured he sprouts this like column and is just like pushing her down away from the house because she's like, no, I'm not going anywhere. Um, Unfortunately that backfires because Death goes right to where it is. He's not headed to the house. And he says that famine can be mortal, but then she has to go with death. And or like the two of you can join me. And famine is like, nope, boom, and it dies. And I was like, this is very unfair because everyone else got to keep their woman. He relinquished his purpose. Why can't he live peacefully with her? I think death was being not nice in this moment.
Yeah, but I mean, already did it for two. So even, yeah, I was like, there's no way he's gonna just let it happen a third time. But
Yeah.
I remember earlier you had mentioned that like sometimes things are unfair.
Yeah.
And yeah, for that to happen in the ending, I was like, "Ah, like yeah, humanity's it's unfair, whatever. This is a book, please."
Yeah.
And yeah, he's like, I'll let you be mortal, but she dies. And he even says, then what was the point? And I was
Yeah.
like, thank
Yeah.
you.
It's giving like the manager was calling you in for your shift, but you don't want to go to work. Death is like, I don't want to have to come do all this. Like,
Yeah. Oh
what do
my
you
God.
mean I'm next? Um, so they fight between Famine and Death, and finally, to just get Anna back, Famine accepts the offer. She comes back and realizes what happened and stabs Death, which I love her for that. I love her when she was like, no. Um, he go, oh, and that's when Death says, that's not fair. And Famine is like,
Yep.
LOL, welcome to humanity, buddy. This
Yep.
is how it works. Um, and then basically Famine and Anna speed off to go search for their brothers. And that's where the book ends. And I was like, oh my gosh, I did not expect it to go that way at all.
I didn't either, and I'm so excited to see them all come together in the next book and to learn what happened with pestilence and with war and their families.
Yeah.
Because like at this point, hasn't it been like some crazy amount of decades or something? So they'd be old.
Yeah. The starting Death, I'm like 10 chapters in right now. I think they're like 26 years in to the Horsemen arriving. So I was thinking about that too of like so like what did he come? Victor? Victor and Sarah have to be like in their 40s and 50s now. Like, do they have
Yeah.
grandchildren?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I can't wait to see where that goes. And like the wings, we love a winged man, okay?
Yeah,
So yeah, I just can't wait
yeah,
to see how this happens. But yeah, I'm really glad that because I said this last time we spoke, is like it just got so very predictable to me. So I'm like, I need a different ending. I
yeah,
need it to be different. And so I'm glad this one was. As much as I do really want a happily ever after, everything's so nice. Um, I'm glad she set it up for death to be like a big battle. Like we all come together and fight together. I think is
yeah.
what it's going to be like. So
And I agree with you too. I think it'd be really nice to get updates on where everyone else is at. It's just like we went on such big journeys with them. I just want to know how they're doing. Like, how is it
I don't
raising
know
kids?
what they're up to.
Yeah. Like I feel like War took up like knitting or something, you know? I just like I don't know, feels appropriate.
Does yoga now.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Um, yeah, okay, so what just looking at all three books overall, I know you said a little bit about how you felt Famine was more similar to Pestilence. Um, what were your thoughts about this book in comparison to the two previous?
Um, I Pestilence is still like if I had to rank them, Pestilence is still number one for me.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty typical though, like first in a series. It's hard to overcome that. I hope Death does. I think it'll be easy to for
Yeah.
Death's book to overcome it, but we'll see. So far, Pestilence first, then Famine, then War. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. What did you rate Famine?
4 stars. Yeah, because I did really like it. It just was a little like it was slow until you got to like 3/4 in, I feel like. Because I so I read it on my Kindle or I read it on my Kindle and I look at 50%. I'm like, what has even happened so far?
Yeah, fair.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I gave it 4 stars as well, and I think even with the changes that she made, there is a bit of a predictable format. You know, we know that they're gonna find a woman, they're eventually gonna fall in love. Like, so I'm curious to see how the fourth book plays a line. Maybe it breaks from that completely and we get like blindsided, which I think would be very interesting. But I am excited to see again how she continues to make it different and kind of like fresh in a way, because we kind of do have an idea of how it's played out so many times. So I do think you have to add in some extra elements of like not just reading the same story multiple times, even if it's different characters and situations, it's the same format essentially.
Yeah, 100%. I can't wait to see who Death's woman becomes or like who she is
Yeah.
because it's she's got to be crazy different from the other three, I hope.
I won't say anything.
Because you're already 10 chapters in, right?
I sure am.
Oh,
I know some things.
I'm starting it today. Don't even worry about it.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Um, yeah. I do think it was good. I think for me, Anna's character really like sold me this book. Like
Yeah.
I just really liked her. Famine, I don't know, he was frustrating. But I get it, but like he was frustrating.
Yeah, I think as like aggressive as War was,
Yeah.
I did really like how Famine he really was crazy. Like this man he would flip on a dime like moods and I don't know that kind of made it a little less predictable.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree though. I think Anna definitely made it and then I like how Famine was a little different from the other two horsemen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But perfect. Well, thank you again for joining me and dealing with tech problems. That's always fun.
Yeah.
We will be filming the fourth one next week. Now, granted, you won't get the episode next week from when this is posted, but you will get it eventually. And yeah, do you want to let everyone know where they can find you? Obviously, all the links will be down in the bio, but yeah.
Yeah. On Instagram at Gabby Gets Reading, post book reviews, reactions to books, little cute booky pictures. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You always have such cute, you do like the month, like all the books that you've read in the month with your little stars. Where do you get that from? Or do you make it yourself or like,
Yeah, so I use Canva actually.
okay,
Yeah, I have a friend that she used it for she's into marketing and so she uses it for a lot of her projects
yeah.
and she told me about it and I was like, "Well, can I get that account info and like mess around with it?" And so, yeah, that's I just use Canva. It's pretty great.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I use that for my work all the time, but those are so cute. So I was like, I wanted to be like, are you getting them from somewhere? Like, how are we doing this? Cool.
Thanks.
Good to know. I'm trying to be better at posting like just more and different stuff, but um, awesome. If you've made it to this point in the episode, thank you so much for watching. I'd be incredibly grateful if you showed some support either by following or subscribing, depending on what platform you're watching on, and leaving a comment. You can always follow me on Instagram at Busy Reading Romantasy or on TikTok at busy.reading.romantasy to see what I'm up to. You can also email me at busyreadingromantasy@gmail.com to tell me your thoughts, dreams, secrets, or if you just have any book and author suggestions you'd love me to cover. Grab yourself a good book, get cozy. I'll see you next Wednesday for a new episode.